All right, welcome back, folks. Again, my name is Tony Lopes with Dirty Boots Capital, and today I have some fine folks with me today to talk about the value of resiliency and building a community around this concept of resiliency. And so they're working on some great projects to go ahead and do that. They're all very successful in their own right. So let's go ahead and introduce them. Why don't you start, Sean and Allison? Tell the folks a little bit about yourself and what resiliency means to you.
Colonel Sean Conley. I retired from the Army after 26 years and was with the Corps of Engineers, building the border wall and building projects around the world, anti-terrorism force protection expertise, as well as mission sets of construction and construction management and development to build the family resiliency with our two little boys and my wife, and build a community that it's a concept that doesn't seem that novel when we talk about it, because of the fact that our grandparents all lived this lifestyle without even thinking about it, where the community helped and the community grew, and the skill sets that they had were just commonplace. And that's kind of where we're going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I am more entering in not the respect that the other couple that you'll meet and how they've done lifelong. I'm just kind of the beginner in it, but I was an educator for over 12 years, still kind of teaching on the public realm. I've taught internationally, and then I came to meet Sean kind of thereafter. But I look at resiliency as what we're giving forth to our kids and their legacy of education and helping them to learn on their own. Intangible things that I think are so important within education. We're always looking at what are the criterions that they're learning, but there's things far beyond that that are more intrinsic and harder to grasp and see. So we have two little boys, and so and for us as well, kind of being in the military mindset, what resilience means for us is kind of bouncing around from job to job and move to move. And so you kind of learn that, and that is a keepsake within a military lifestyle, but it means something more to us on a personal level too, just kind of how we live our lives. So
no, that's excellent. That's a great start to the conversation. And then what about Dave and Regina? Why don't you share a little bit about your backgrounds and what resiliency means to you, and in terms of building a stronger community?
So Dave Fabry, Regina and I founded Campfire Properties about 8 years ago to build a business around owning and operating RV parks and campgrounds. Before that, I was a manager for a manufacturing company in Tennessee. Did that for about 20 years. So growing the business. So I know things from a business standpoint. For us, buying campgrounds was a methodology to build our own business. So I'd been building a business for my employer for 20 years, and as we went through the 2008 2009 recession, really felt the need to control our own destiny, and so we wanted to build our own business around real estate and in a unique way, which is with RV parks and campgrounds. And part of that was to have some resilience, right? Because on a campground or on an RV park, you have those inherent services. You have water, sewer, shelter, all of those things that provide for the basic needs, so that if there were something catastrophic, that we'd have a place to go and a place to stay. And now we're kind of developing additional skills on our own homestead here in Arizona. Where we're building, off-grid solar, rainwater collection, building garden beds, raising chickens, and that kind of thing to have that similar resilience.
Sure, I'm Regina Fabry, and I guess my background would be sales, marketing, customer service, and then I transitioned to being a stay-at-home mom and homeschooling, and I did homeschool them through. So we have one that's graduated and one that will be graduating this year. Resilience in that, to me, is teaching, or inspiring rather, curiosity in them to be lifelong learners. One of the things that I learned along our journey, and they were in school early on, is teaching to the test was a little intensive for them, and that kind of progress was stifling to their wanting to learn. So we did some Montessori, we did some unschooling, and then of course covered the topics you need to cover in order to meet that scope and sequence, but do it in a very untraditional way. I think a lot of people, and I know I felt that way too, start their homeschooling journey, and they're trying to create school at home. Very uninspiring and very difficult for all involved. So our children are very much driven by their own passions and desires to learn, and that tickles me now as they're exploring their interests and where that's taking them. Resilience for me is not being dependent on the systems the way the systems are. I think I've watched a lot of my friends homestead through the years, and that's inspired me, and it's also frightened me, quite honestly, because it's all consuming. So that was the kind of inspiration for Resiliency Ranch, or a farmstead community, really is, why are we all trying to do this on our own? Wouldn't it be great if you had this in community? As I started looking, there were other places that were doing it. They were, small scaling it, and all producers. I think that's what resiliency means to me, is producing in community.
Dave, Regina, Allison, and Sean, you guys are doing great work out there, because building a community is so important to us. And a lot of people, Regina, you just touched on it, there's a lot of folks who are doing it individually, right? I was just at this great event this weekend with a lot of smart people, smarter than me, and also richer than me. And they are, I was like the poorest one there, which is okay. I love learning from these folks. But the thing I took away from it was there are like 4 of them who are building their own, or have built their own resiliency ranch. And so I walk away from that saying, they're smart. They're doing this. They're doing it for a reason. They're not doing it to keep up with the Johnsons, or they're not doing it to make more money. They have plenty of money, coming in. They're doing it because, as I say, our freedoms are at risk, and they're at risk in a lot of different ways, right? You've mentioned, homeschooling, right? Being able to take that under your own control, to be able to teach in a way that works with your own kids and the material that you feel is most empowering and most needed for your kids. And that's just one aspect. What about water supply? I read a lot of different stories, not just about whether we're going to have the quantity of water that we need, but also the quality of water that we're going to need, right? So water's another issue that's popping up. Food scarcity, right? We all heard about, and continue to hear about, eggs costing $6. And
prices have risen for lots of foods, but the cost of eggs climbed the most in the last year.
And, the World Economic Forum, the WEF, wants us to eat bugs. Right. So their plan is to get rid of cattle and beef. And I don't know about you guys. I think I know your stance, but I don't think any one of us really wants to be eating bugs. I want a good hamburger made from beef. That's how I'm built, and that's what I want, and that's freedom to me. Right. So there's food issues, there's energy issues, right? And I'm not going to go into every single one, but there are so many different issues, and a lot of folks, and I hope a lot of folks that are watching this look into what you good people are doing. And this is not a promotional thing. This comes from my heart. This is where I spend a lot of my time, helping folks understand how our freedoms are at risk, and they need to take action, right? Not just sit there and watch this damn video, right? Go out and you got to take action, because if it's just us here talking heads, talking about this stuff, it's great. You can listen to it, but you have to take action, much like a lot of these rich and smart people are doing that I was hanging out. I was so fortunate, so blessed to be able to hang out with them this weekend. They're teaching me a ton. Help us understand where you guys are today in terms of building this community. Are you working on any projects? Are you working on pulling something together so folks can kind of benefit from this community, this resiliency that you're putting together?
So yeah, we are. I mean, really, Tony, our vision is to build a number of communities across the country. And being that we're in Arizona, we're kind of starting with a property here in Arizona, but we're also looking at building communities in Texas, or other places around the country, so that Because communities are local, right? And you really need to go where the resources are. Our biggest criteria is that the property has to be able to sustain the community. So that's, the basics: water, productive soils, the ability to grow livestock. There may be a property in Colorado that's better suited for growing lumber, or in the Northeast where you're at for growing lumber. We're not going to produce a whole lot of lumber here in Arizona, but we do have a long growing season. So if we can create these communities around the country, then we can have those transactions and have that self-sufficiency across those communities by having that commerce between them.
That's interesting. So that's an aspect I never thought about. When you bring up, the need for lumber, I always thought about, what you guys were doing. We're building a resiliency within a community. But now this idea of going bigger and building multiple resiliency communities across the country that can leverage off of each other, right? Maybe one has a great farming community and creates a lot of beef and eggs and chickens and a lot of fresh vegetables, right? To be able to share that with other like-minded communities. I never really thought about that, but that's a huge aspect of what you guys are doing. So thanks for sharing that. I also and my background is in real estate. And so I want to hear a little bit more and share because I know a little bit about what you guys are doing there from a real estate perspective. So I want to share a little bit with the audience, what you folks are doing in terms of trying to find properties where you can build out and develop and create maybe some cash flow from the real estate itself. Because the resiliency is great, but to be able to add cash flow into people's pockets through this investment is phenomenal. So help us understand that a little better.
So Tony, what we're trying to do with that is we're taking these properties and we're trying to look at, we've done extensive due diligence on any property we look at and making sure it's suitable for not just farming side of things, but the development side of things. Because we envision this as being a capitalist mindset group where people, you come in, hopefully we're going to subdivide some of these properties where, you can buy an acre or a half an acre. And instead of paying into an HOA, you're part of this private membership association. So you get your crops, you get your food from this association rather than a nice swimming pool. You'll get, nice sustainable water, things like that. Instead of, a nice tennis court, now you get, fresh beef. So those type of things where you're really looking at those type of things being sustainable. But with the capitalist side of things, one of the things we're looking at is with Allison's background and Regina's background is looking at some homesteading classes, looking at teaching people resiliency skills, everything from, one of the things we're talking about is emergency survival time, wilderness first aid types things, because if, China cuts off our medicine supplies, how do you survive and things like that. So we're looking at all those types of things as resiliency classes that will also be there. But the people who invest in the properties or invest in the community will be able to either we're looking at maybe making some bungalows or cabins, or the people who build their homes can rent them out for Airbnb type things for these different events, which will bring in the crowds, bring in the people of the community. So you don't have to be there all the time, but now you're using the principles of real estate where you're able to leverage this property by allowing it to bring in cash flow.
No, that's beautiful. I love that aspect because I work with so many folks who are looking for additional cash flow to supplement their income, right? We've all seen over the last 2 years, inflation just skyrocket. So folks are looking for that piece. So you guys are, making the best of both worlds, both resiliency as well as cash flow. And that's something that I truly love. Allison and Regina, I'd love to hear more from both of you because, women, mothers, they're so nurturing. They play that role. And, man, it pains me when, the mainstream media and the politicians want to get away from calling mothers mother, and they want to call them something else. They're birthing parents and they're this and they're that. No, they're moms, they're mothers, they're loving creatures that nurture their children. One of the things that I love about both of you couples there are you have young children, and the world in 10 years and 20 years is going to be a very different place. I think we'd all agree on that. And so tell me a little bit about, kind of like the emotional aspect maybe, or just the nurturing aspect, your why. Why are you doing this? This isn't for money for you folks. This isn't, maybe it's legacy, but tell me your why. Why are you getting into this? And maybe help us understand from a maternal standpoint, a little bit about that aspect.
If it's okay, I'm going to jump in with my own story, thinking about, I mean, we're all still fresh in our mind with COVID. And going through with COVID, we had just freshly moved from Germany back to here, back to the States. And we were probably 2 months in, and we were on lockdown mode. And my husband was, continuing to work, and I was with a smaller babe and a running around toddler, and just feeling like trying to always figure it out and doing it on my own. And just is not natural. And I think there's something about the nuclear mindset as is too, is just not conducive to families and mothers therein. It's, you want to be able to be networking. You want to have, you're not always figuring it out, but there's someone who might be 2 paces ahead of you, who has done the ropes and kind of knows what they have learned from a toddler, or what is a kiddo like at year 10. They can kind of look at that and kind of give you glimpses of that. But networking is so important for mothers, and not feeling alone. I had multiple years kind of being overseas in different places. And that was always akin to people living overseas. You had to just dive in and get to know people. There was no kind of, working around the edges and getting to know people. It's like they were going to be your best friend. And they were going to be the people that would help to support you in this environment that was new. And I feel like we're kind of in that same place of like, this is a new place. This is a new time and era that we're living, and we can't do it alone. We can't figure it out by ourselves. And I think that was part of the fire and passion for us, was just being able to do what we normally and naturally should do, and being in community.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. As you're telling that story, it reminds me of my parents. When they immigrated to this country from Portugal, they moved into what we call in New England a triple decker, right? It's 3 apartments all stacked on one another, right? So they moved into this triple decker apartment, and there would be a sister on the 2nd floor, and maybe a brother or another sister on the 3rd floor, right? It was all family in that building. They all had their individual apartment, but they were all able to rely on each other. And they built a community in that building such that they didn't have to go at it alone. And that's a frightful thing. And going through the pandemic, that was a frightful thing, because, we weren't prepared for, having to rely on other people. Right. I remember with my tenants, I was bringing them, because I was fortunate. I was able to get out relatively easily. Some of my tenants were elderly, and I was able to actually go out, BJ's, wherever it was, and buy a lot of toilet paper, because for whatever reason during COVID, I still don't understand, people were hoarding toilet paper. And so my tenants were not able to find toilet paper, or even the Clorox wipes. I would actually bring that out to each one of the buildings and station it somewhere so that they would have access to it, right? That's a little piece of, building that community that I love, right? That I share with my tenants. And yeah, COVID was a very interesting time. Hopefully we don't see that anytime soon. I hope we never see it again. I guess I'll end it there. And then Regina, what about yourself in terms of, just that nurturing aspect of being a mom and wanting to have a better future for your kids, and, seeing where things might be in 10 to 20 years? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I started down this journey when I did bring the kids home, and planted myself there at home. So I was doing my own bit of researching, and kind of saw the long shot of where the World Economic Forum was going to be taking us. Part of that resilience was let's build a business so you're not reliant on a company. Let's build a business that has these opportunities to build within a community, a small community, have infrastructure, get out and grow food. As a homeschool mom, you tend to network with other homeschool moms. And again, like I said, I saw a lot of my friends homesteading, and I wasn't in a position to homestead. I was in a HOA neighborhood, and couldn't have my chickens, and wasn't allowed to have a garden, and that was frustrating, but that was for that time. I think for me, moving forward and creating my own path and having my own choices versus having somebody else make a life for me is what drives me, and leaving that legacy to my children and my grandchildren. It saddens me to think that freedom is under such a threat, and to watch watch the things that have taken place. For me, that freedom would even be during COVID when they shut down the farmers market. I prefer to shop at the farmers market and support local. It's better food, and I like to keep my money there. And when government was telling us, Walmart, Costco, that didn't sit very well with me. Finally they did work some things out, and we were able to drive through lines and pick up our food for a while. We too were landing to a new residence, a new state when COVID first hit. So that really feeling like, well, how are we going to plug into this area was a concern. But we've managed to make connections and found that we're in a really good place for people who share the values, and that nurturing. Again, I just really want to provide my children, my grandchildren, a legacy by creating something parallel. I think that's really important.
No, that's beautiful, right? I mean, at the end of the day, all the money in the world, doesn't really mean a whole hell of a lot when you're on your deathbed, right? You want to know that you raised your kids the right way, and you're providing them with goodness so they can go forward and thrive. And so you folks are doing that. I look across the country, again, blessed to meet and see in different parts of the country that I go out to, and I hear more people are doing homeschooling, more people are doing farms at home. And I love that. I love that folks are taking action with that. And then I go to other events where, folks who have the means to do more and build a second home or have a second location to go to that has a good amount of resiliency. I share that with others to say, these are smart people, right? They're doing it for a reason. And we need to understand what that is. And the fact that more homeschooling is happening, the fact that more gardens and private, backyards is happening, more chickens in the neighborhoods are happening. That's all. I see that as all goodness, right? And again, what you folks are doing as goodness, bringing us all together. None of us have to be like that expert in everything. And again, it's something you folks are working to build, right? If I'm good at starting fires, great, call me to start fires. But I suck at cooking. You don't want to eat anything that I cook, right? So it's great that there's others that can do wonders by growing beans and kale and, having a chicken, right? They can do wonders with that for a meal, where I'd never be able to do that, right? So to be able to pull people together with these different skill sets, right? And then be able to cross-train them in different skills, that's just so huge. Folks need to, again, I come back to take action. This movement with more homeschooling, this movement with more gardens and private backyards, this movement with smart people, rich people, whatever you want to call them, building out their own resiliency ranch or property, that is not stopping anytime soon. And just because you don't have a lot of money or you don't have, all the skills, doesn't mean you should not pursue it, right? That's what I love about what you folks are doing. You are making this accessible for a lot of people. And so, maybe we can share some actions people can take, right? I know you guys have a website, you have ways for people to get in contact with you. What are some last thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience in terms of taking action and being able to reach out and learn more about what you do?
Well, I love the Chinese proverb where, every journey starts with a single step. That old, starting. And I mean, so that's kind of what we've just started doing. I mean, whether it was, raising some chickens in the backyard or, starting some box gardens, and just, Allison has been actively involved in a number of garden projects and looking at the local community to understand, just how do you raise in our environment and how does that work? And then for Allison and I, something that was real important that we sat down and do is we started off this year, and we try and start off with every year recently, is with writing down a mission and clarifying our family mission and clarifying our family vision and our goals for the year. And then trying to apply those goals. And one of those biggest goals is our legacy for our boys. Is what legacy are we going to leave? I mean, as solid believers in Christ, we believe, that God's words, which says, basically you impact lives for 5 generations. I mean, it's pretty clear that, within the next 5 generations, what we do today will impact them. And so that's what we want to do, is the legacy of 5 generations, even a generation from now. It's like, what are we leaving behind for our boys? And not just the skill set, But also, one of the things, that, Tony, is through, real estate and everything else is, there's everything else in the world they seem to be making more of, but you can't make more land. And so, as a
You're
legacy of land,
spot on.
as legacy of leaving land behind for the family is going to be also pretty amazing. So that's kind of where we are. I mean, I don't know if you want to add some more, Allison,
No,
but
yeah, the goals are pivotal for sure. Because sometimes it can be 3 months in, and you're like, "Oh, I know I set some resolutions or I set something," but a goal is a way of really creating habits. And if you're creating habits over 3 months' time, then things become more of a natural part of your day to day.
No, I love that every journey starts with a single step, right? That's action. We got to take action. You guys are taking action. I'm taking action. I certainly hope the viewers take action. David and Regina, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I'm a believer in goal setting. Goals are a way to stimulate action in the direction that you want to go, because without the proper direction, without the goals, you can take action, but it's going to lead you down the wrong path, or potentially down a wrong path. I would say that the first steps for people that are listening is to assess what their basic needs are. Find out what your basic needs are and find a way to provide those basic needs outside of the control of somebody else. The more agency you have, the less likely you are to be susceptible to controls by outside influences. A lot of the people that were coerced to mandates did it because of financial reasons, because of they felt they had no other choice. But if you can provide for those basic needs, your food, shelter, water, clothing, energy, heat, that kind of thing, those things that even if it's a little bit, grow 10% of the calories that you eat. That's at least a first step. And if you have to ramp up to 100, it's a whole lot easier than it is from starting from scratch. So, that's really the advice that I would give to somebody that feels like they're so far behind, or that feels like that they've missed the boat. There's always time. So just, take those actions today.
Absolutely. And we're a community. We help each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not about the money. It's about helping your neighbor, helping your friend, helping your family,
Yeah.
Take those actions. So I certainly hope folks take action around this. My little piece is providing you a little platform here to be able to share your message and get this out to many people, as many as we can. So I definitely wanted to do my little piece. Where can folks find you, right? So folks need to take action in different ways. How can they find you? How can they look you up and take action with you folks?
Well, they can go to our website, which is talking about the projects, which is resiliencyranch.farm. And that kind of, has a lot of our information about, the project we're working on right now, as well as, the concept that we're working on. And then you can also email me at Sean at SAOLholdings.com, or and then Dave, if you want to provide your contact info.
Sure. Yeah, they can email to resilient@campfireproperties.com. So that's resilient@campfireproperties.com, and we'll be happy to talk with them about what we're doing and to connect them to resources if we're not able to help them directly.
This is beautiful, guys. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes so folks know exactly where to find you and reach out and contact you and take action, right? That's the big thing. Take action, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to walk through that door and do it for you. You have to take action yourself. And there's so many good people, like David, Regina, Sean, and Allison. There's so many good people out there who are doing good things, for our community, for our family, and for our friends. So please go out there and take action. So David, Regina, Sean, Allison, thank you so much for being with me today. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you,
And let's take action together.
All right. Thank you,
Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.